The straw might not have been great. Okay. Oh my goodness. Hello and welcome to the Q&R Code podcast. I'm Quinn, and today I'm introducing a very happy episode. We're talking high holiday stories. It's none of your business whether I'm high or not, and that's frankly would be inappropriate to ask, but I just wanted to acknowledge that, Riley, I don't know about you, but I personally feel like we've been being extremely demure about marijuana recently. And not that marijuana deserves being demure about, but I just would say we have not been being in your face at all. And it is 420 week, okay? And we're allowed to celebrate something that's fun for us. And we wanted to just have this episode sharing some high stories from our friends and loved ones. Not to make anyone feel pressured about weed or the holiday, but just because we're allowed to be weed smokers. We're allowed to enjoy a gummy. And we do. And
we take that liberty.
We take that liberty.
It calls to us. And I think that my favorite was when Quinn said to me, Riley, for Easter falls on 420 this year. Right?
Said,
or is it flip-flopped? Yes, you said like
Easter's, yeah, I said Easter's on 420. No. It sounded so much funnier when I said it, right?
Quinn said it in the way of, this is the like predominant holiday that Easter is falling upon, whereas in I would say the dominant culture would say, oh, Easter is like the day that it's on, but Quinn was implying that it was a primary holiday. We don't remember the semantics. That's the thing that I am most concerned about with these stories, because as anybody that has had a little lifted moment knows, in the moment things can be so funny, but sometimes it's really a you had to be there situation. But we knew we have some loved ones, people that are close in our lives that are storytellers and that we thought we got a kick out of not being in these situations, hearing about that. So we asked, can we gather these and try to bring some of that silliness and joy, and sometimes little, there were some hiccups, some, as you would say, misadventures that are just fun looking back on. Maybe sometimes they were a little less fun in the moment. We've got a mixed bag here, but I think that it's just gonna be a funny little look at some different moments that people have had. Classic how much are like high school, college, those sorts of years of shenanigans. But I think that, not again to direct any fingers in anyone's particular direction, Quinn got into the sacrament a little earlier in life than I had, so I didn't really have like the high school misadventures vibe. Some of us, it's a different story.
Yes. But you did start early college.
Yes.
So it's not like you're 21 before trying it. No, Riley was still a underage
certified teenager
user of the plant.
It's like, if I'm going down, you are going down with me.
Yeah. Riley did not wait till she was legal. Let's make that 100% clear. Yes, I might have had some more moments in high school encounters with the plant. God, I'm such a liar. Yes. Hey, we don't need
on the radar.
We don't need to talk.
That's not what this is about.
No, it's not. This is not a confessional. This is just, you guys. Okay, this is something I did want to say, because whatever. I don't give a fuck, actually. If you don't support marijuana use, that's totally fine. This might not be the episode for you, or you can stick around and listen, and maybe it'll make you feel slightly less, or maybe even possibly more judgmental of the situation. So, either way,
Yeah.
this is about our, you don't even have to be a stoner girly to enjoy weed. You can enjoy just a little gummy sometimes. You can enjoy smoking a joint sometimes. You can enjoy sometimes it's every day. Any of those things we relate to. We are here with you on. Oh my god, we are being so giggle pussies. But it's also just a spring vibe. As you can see, my delightful little spring arrangement over here. Yes, these are all my chickens' beautiful eggs. Well, we actually have
At
way
this
more
point,
eggs.
you're like a just Scrooge McDuck up on your throne with that many eggs by you. Do you know some people
Yeah,
are
this
like,
is giving
oh, we can't buy eggs to dye for Easter this year.
Literally, this is
It's like I've
actually
been overflowing
so
vat
insensitive.
of farm fresh eggs.
That is what's happening, and I didn't mean it in an insensitive light. Yeah, I did not donate any eggs or anything like that. That would have been really nice to think of. Well, I guess it's not too late.
It's never too
I
late.
have been sharing the joy, but not giving them all away, because I will say we did learn our lesson last year with Sean and I being very new to the homesteading of it all, that we ran out of eggs come winter, and we're like, oh, we don't want to be buying eggs. And we had so many eggs in the spring and summer that we were just making as many quiches as possible. So we realized, okay, I do want to give away eggs, and I really care about spreading the joy, and it's so fun, and they're just such a beautiful, precious, delicious thing that I feel so lucky to consume. And we've been doing some preserving techniques for some of these eggs so that we'll have them later into the year. I want to learn glassing, which is where you keep the egg just as is, not cooked, and put it in a jar full of water, and there's like, I think it's called dehydrated lime or something. I've not done it before, but we've done some pickling. And anyway, I'm excited and proud of that little
I love
venture.
that. And I also, of course, was only kidding, because when it does come to eggs, I think when you have chickens, people expect like, oh, are you giving a lot away to your neighbors? And for us, with how many we have, we're like, we pretty much like steadily have enough for the two of us. But I love it when there is an overflow and a bounty to share with people, and especially with the garden and things, we're starting to have that more. But the eggs, it's not like you have to have a pretty big flock if you just have them in spades for everybody. I already know that I am just going to be cracking up when you're telling me these stories, because I love you're listening to you tell stories. But I guess what? I'll open up with a bit of a silly story that isn't even like, anyway, it doesn't have that much of a plot, other than the first time that I did get stoned in college, as we said early on. We were in our apartment that Quinn and I lived together, and we were not much of the going out partying type. By much, I mean not at all whatsoever. And what you think of with college and going to house parties and stuff, that wasn't what my college experience was like. I spent a lot of time hanging.
I would say a few bars and parties could count on two hands for our whole 4 years there, probably.
Certainly.
Definitely. Yeah. Why am I saying probably? I know for a fact.
It wouldn't fill up two hands.
And definitely not all four of our hands.
We were hanging out at our place, and had, like, Quinn and my boyfriends were over, and we lived with a roommate and that was a PhD student, and our brother, and Quinn, Connor, and I went into her closet. We had like mini walk-in closets in this apartment, and we're just being goofy and dressed me up in like the silliest outfit of Quinn had like a piece that had like weed leaf pasties and
a mesh top that I intended one time to wear to a 420 rave when I was 18 and never ended up wearing, I don't think. But yeah,
it wasn't
bead
super
leaves over the nipples.
sound.
And then we put her in some fucking carpet pants and a crazy scarf and hat, and we pinned her to the floor and put the dab pen in her mouth. And said,
do not say it as if I was coerced. There was consent involved, but we were just being
but we were
silly goose time.
We were pressuring her.
There was peer pressure involved that led to pressure consent. Anyway, after that, the door was really opened for me.
The door
and it wasn't a problem.
Open. And Riley has never looked back. Okay?
But we were so silly going out into the apartment. Just a time I remember fondly that we were just being so silly, and it was not bad vibes. And unfortunately, too many people will be like, my first time, I like panicked and was not used to it. And that was not my experience. So that's what I wanted to share. Do you want to share a little opener before I get into mine, Quinn?
No, I mean, if you smoke weed enough times, there's definitely stories that aren't going to be your favorite, obviously, which maybe I'll save that for later. So, right, why don't you start with the story?
Okay. This is going to be a retelling. A couple of our participants called in stories, so I'm doing a bit of a notes acting situation. Okay. I did have permission to share that these a couple are Dad's college stories. Nothing too wild or incriminating about anyone. He felt comfortable with that being named, and he was saying that this was, a few decades ago, not olden times by any means, but some of the like deadhead stoner days you can imagine. And he was living in a fourplex in college, so he lived with a friend like in the upper unit, and then there were some friends down in the bottom unit. And as he described it, one of them was definitely the stoner of the house, and he lived downstairs with
classic
Jim, who was not. Dad said it was a super nice guy. They all had a good time, liked to hang out, but he just was more of a beer guy and not one to use weed.
Dad
but the rest
is
of
saying
them
this about himself or Jim?
about Jim, please. Okay. But he was saying that they all would hang out and it was a good vibe. But that just wasn't really his scene. So the other downstairs roommate was like, guys, the Grateful Dead movie is coming out this weekend. They're doing a midnight showing. Let's go to that. It'll be a great time. Dad, this guy, friends are like, yes, of course. That sounds great to us too. A friend made brownies, little pot brownie action. They're like, well, take these, enjoy the midnight movie. Jim, on the other hand, is not part of this situation because that just wasn't really his scene. So they would go out, leave the brownies on the counter. Good time is had by all. Jim in the morning has a 7 a.m. class to attend, and he gets up early, pours himself a cup of coffee, is like, okay, headed off to lecture. Oh, a delightful little brownie left on the counter. Yeah, he's like, gosh, that sounds great that I don't have to like worry about breakfast. I'll just grab this out the door. Heads into his 7 a.m. lecture, and as Dad said, he like told them later about like part of the way in, he was like, I am like tripping on this coffee or something. And then he's like, oh my gosh, Terry, he was like, brownies. That's what I had. I am on a weed brownie. And he said that he was just like, in the lecture, like, dang it, I dosed myself this morning.
I know exactly the feeling of doing that with a pot brownie, and, well, that's not exactly true because I knew damn well there was weed in it. But a moment that comes to mind for me is early in the morning, like a super early morning flight to Denver when we were at University of Wyoming, living in Laramie, and I had just got weed brownies from a boyfriend at the time, and it's like 6 a.m. or earlier, maybe, empty stomach. I decide to have maybe they're small, and I'm talking like
They
small,
were
tiny chunks of a brownie. And this weed was homegrown by his parents, and
So you're
I
like,
did,
oh, homegrown weed, tiny brownie.
yeah.
That's not a
And
lot.
I can't remember if I had a half or whole bit of the chunk, but I get to the airport, and you guys, I'm a seasoned marijuana user at this point. Like, it's I'm not thinking
Quinn
it'll
has
be a big
danced in
deal.
those waters.
Yeah. And I get to the airport and was just like, okay, I'm not feeling good. Like, really, really not feeling good. And then by the time I got in the airplane, I was like, I'm so high right now. I actually don't think I can't sit in an airplane seat even for half an hour to fly to Denver.
No.
Like, I am, and the seatbelt, whatever, not even seatbelt signing, it's a tiny freaking plane. I'm right in the back by the bathroom, and they had just said, like, everyone do not get up from your seats for the whole rest of the flight. You need to stay buckled in, and we'll land sooner than you know. And there's no, I thought for the first time, I thought I'm surely gonna yark. And
No,
I look in the seat pocket
not
in front of
York.
me. There is no bag, and I have nothing that could be
exact.
used. So I ding for the first time in my life the freaking the why am I
Not
thinking
the call
stewardess?
button.
The flight attendant,
Huge.
and I'm like, can I please use the bathroom? We hadn't started taxiing yet. She's like, okay, yeah, go ahead. And I go in, I am green. And I mean a different colored person. Like, my face, I was like, whoa. She must have looked at me and thought, yeah, you need to go to the bathroom right now. And couldn't get myself to throw up. I have a stomach of steel, and anywho, I can also relate though to the feeling of tripping balls on coffee in a lecture because
Me too.
I remember when we first started drinking coffee and a few times having that on an empty stomach and feeling like I felt like I was on drugs in the lecture. Caffeine is a drug. People just
Yeah,
build such a high tolerance to it.
Yeah, that's how I realized that caffeine was not my friend to have in that capacity. Should I switch off and give you another one or finish? Dad did a shorter college story that's also classic.
You can go
Let me
for
just
it.
tell this really quickly. He said that another time they had some buddies that were like next door that he walked over to their place and it was just like totally hot box and they were like, oh, like we're thinking about going to this market. There was like a corner store and getting supplies for brownies because it sounds so good right now. And he was like, yeah, I'm good. I'm gonna go do some work. But they were like, come by in a little bit, about an hour, we're gonna have brownies. And he was like, okay, that sounds good. They go over, get 2 boxes, come back, turn on the oven, and as they are waiting for it to heat up, they already have the munchies so hardcore. They're like, let's start working on this batter, have a few spoonfuls, tied us over, and when Dad came back over, they're all like not doing well on the couches, and he's like, "Oh, did you end up making and eating those brownies?" And they were like, "Well, we made them, but then we never ended up putting them in the oven because the batter was just so good, so we just ate that." So they just ate 2 brownie boxes worth of batter, which would make you feel so ill.
Yeah, that's a lot. I appreciate a spoonful of brownie batter, that's for sure, but the whole tub is not gonna be good. Okay, let's see what I have cooking here.
Not every single story reminding me of a Quinn story, but I mean, you ate to the point of near death on one of these national holidays.
Yes, I suppose I can tell the story. So, in college, not me being like, here I go on a rant on my podcast. Yeah, I need to talk on my podcast. I'm like, am I talking too much? Okay, shut up and listen. So, it's freshman year of college. I'm living with Riley and our brother that is, I don't want, you know what? I don't mean it offensively to say he's a bit of a meathead, but um he was definitely giving gym boy chicken and rice and lots of whey protein. So, I had come to college. We started lifting weights with him quite a bit, and I had started lifting weights in high school with his kind of coaching, and then we get to college and Riley and I start being a little bit of a gym rat, gym bro situation as well with our chicken and rice and several times a week late night at the gym lifting. And I decided to do a cut, which now at this point is something that I I don't want to judge for anyone else. That is not something I've done since, and I'm not really interested in the idea of doing a caloric restriction. But that is what I had had going on. I think it was one or 2 months of a caloric deficit, and I decided, okay, I'll break the deficit on 420. Good idea. I had also not been smoking because I was like, okay, for this, I'm just doing a little reset. And it's 420. We go to Fort Collins, Colorado for an Action Bronson concert. And we eat at this delicious restaurant ahead of time that's like a bistro pub style situation. And we got high before eating, as you do, and ordered, there was a bunch of like delicious mac and cheese, a bunch of wings, other food like that. And I ate myself. I was thinking, like, okay, I can just eat as much as I want to eat because I grew up always eating as much as I want to the point of like a kind of crazy capacity. And it also hadn't hit me yet of, oh, my body's starting to change too. Not only am I coming out of this caloric deficit, I'm just not able to push myself to the point of eating literally the whole dining room table in front of me without like feeling like I was suffering. So I finished my portion. I finished my boyfriend's portion. I finished his friend's portion. And we get to Action Bronson, and I truly believed I was going to need to go to the hospital, get my stomach pumped. Could barely stand. I was just writhing in pain. And what was the icing on the cake?
Also the worst to be at a show when you feel like that, though.
No, at a show like that you're having to stand. It's not like there's chairs. You have to stand. And I was
Quinn's like, bring me a stool.
And it's like a hometown story of ours that, like, from our hometown, that this kid went to a Red Rocks show on 420 and ate himself to the point of he actually did need to get his stomach pumped. So in my head, I'm like, I am gonna have to go to the hospital. I tried going to the bathroom, getting myself to throw up once again. Couldn't do it. There's like nothing I could do to make myself throw up. And the vibes were also just extremely off because Action Bronson's DJ kept making mistakes, and Action throughout the night was just getting more and more pissed off at his DJ, and ultimately ended like literally throwing his mic into the crowd and being like, fuck this shit, like, I'm done, good night. And because the venue was not letting him smoke weed, and he's like, I came to Colorado on 420 for a fucking reason, you're not letting me smoke a joint on the stage? So
now that's
weird
why
vibes
his
all
panties
around.
were in a wad. Dang
Yes.
it. Well,
Which I will say
I'm so
that
glad
is
that
ridiculous. In Colorado, to not be able to light up a joint on stage on 420, literally have a heart.
Also, who are you hurting? No one. Like, everyone is consenting in this situation.
Exactly.
Please.
You don't think that we all here are very much so aware of Action Bronson smoking marijuana? Or what the holiday is that we're here attending?
Also, you and I, of course, are gonna feel this way, but I'm like, everyone's just like slosh drunk and you can have drinks. Hello?
Yes.
Okay,
Crazy.
well, I'm so glad you made it out of that one, that situation.
I did not get my stomach pumped. I lived to tell the tale. Okay. Next submission. And this one, I feel like we can say, is my mom's. Okay. One day I was asked by one of my adult children to make some chocolate chip cookies using some homemade hemp butter. Always the willing baker, I said, sure. Well, as all good bakers know, tasting the cookie dough for quality control is necessary. One for the cookie sheet, one to taste test, one for the cookie sheet, one to taste test. Whoa, girl. I love the honesty. Me too, Mom. I tasted about 6 cookies worth of dough before the first batch was out of the oven. Naturally, I had to taste a warm, fresh one as well. After putting the second batch in the oven, I found myself pondering pondering the location of the oven. With the most diligent concentration, I determined it to be somewhere to the left of the sink. Exactly where was not yet ascertained when another son and his girlfriend walked in and immediately asked if I was high. No, I replied with astonishment. Obviously not. Not long after, I became increasingly anxiety-ridden. I begged all of the children to immediately transport me to the ER as I placed a rut in the carpet. I knew I would perish if I tried to sleep, yet they did not whisk me away. I was forced to walk it off until I felt safe enough to sleep. Clearly, I am no longer an edibles baker since seemingly I have no self-control.
First of all, she's so cute and adorable with how she wrote that. And thank you for your storytelling, but second of all, Mom. That is so funny that I do remember, was like, I am not. And I'm like, you're...
She was like how high I was on the airplane. She was
when
like
you're
that.
too high, the last thing you need is someone to be like, oh my god, your eyes are blazing, like, you're obviously high, so we were not giving her that energy. But she was like, seriously, guys, like, I am not well. And I'm like, I am so sorry, actually, genuinely, that you feel this badly right now, because
we've been there.
I know that it's annoying to
do.
hear, but there's only time, and I promise if you just close your eyes and lay down, like, trying to sleep it off will feel the best. And she's like, no, I'm not gonna, like, close my eyes. I'm like, okay.
Which
I wish you would.
There are times when you're that high that you can't fall asleep. And
Yeah.
that is what I will say is I do personally think for sure that marijuana is a lot safer than alcohol and most substances. Um, but that doesn't mean, and especially with edibles that you are home baking, that you do not understand the ratio of what is in there and the true, you just genuinely can't know being just a home baker throwing in the amount of hemp butter that it calls for butter in the recipe, you
Yeah,
don't realize how strong it can get, and
that's
it
an
is no fun.
unfortunate dosage.
It is
Yeah.
no fun to be that high, obviously.
It's
I
not,
am
and
a marijuana
especially for someone,
apologist, but that's
we
horrible.
can also be very clear that she is not a pot user, and
Yeah.
so when you're just like wanting like a little pinch, it was probably like you should have had just barely a pinch and left it
Yes.
there, and so
Cuz then she would have
that
had a
is not
perfectly pleasant little high. If
exactly.
she
You don't
if she
want
had
that sort
had
of introduction.
one cookie instead of 6+ cookies, I think she would have had a very different experience and just been
Me too.
like, I'm a
Which is
little high.
basically along the terms of our next story.
Okay.
It was the summer after my sophomore year of college, and I was going to a party with some old high school friends. With a touch of pre party jitters, I thought it would be a good idea to smoke a tiny bit to prep for the evening. My brother, a huge smoker who exists in a perpetual state of highness, was nearby with his bong. I casually asked if I could take a hit, having no idea what I was getting myself into. Little did I know that it was wax. After taking said
Oh
hit,
my
I
god.
immediately blacked out and found myself on the moon. Not metaphorically, but I literally believed I was in space. 10 minutes later, my increasingly concerned friends, who were supposed to pick me up, came into the house, freaked out that I wasn't responding to their texts or calls. Their search party ended when they discovered me curled into a ball in the bathtub, hiding from Martians. As you could guess, despite their best efforts, I was completely unable to be cajoled into joining them for the party. No amount of reasoning could extract me, and I haven't really smoked since.
Wow.
Another situation where I do unfortunately blame the brother, that if you know
Yes.
your sister does not use weed and she's like, oh, can I have a hit of that? And it's a bong and it's loaded with
And they torch a
wax.
dab. Bruh.
Not cool
No.
at all. That's when you're like, oh,
Just
I don't think you're looking for.
concentrate.
So, for those that don't know, it's just much more potent and concentrated than something like flour that someone that is not used to it would not know. Like, oh, I should make sure that this is like gonna be an appropriate amount for me. You are
Yeah.
responsible. If you are the user, I am putting that out there right now, that do not put people in situations where they're gonna get too stoned. Just like it's irresponsible if somebody's having alcohol for the first time and you pour them a drink with 6 shots. That's
Yeah.
irresponsible for anyone ever. Let's let that be very clear. But it's just like you need to take care of each other, and I am sorry that she thought that Martians were coming for her, but I have never. I'm trying to remember if this is true, but I'm pretty sure even when I've been like the most zooted I've been and I've been wanting that to like not be the case anymore, I don't think I've ever had like full on hallucinations in that
No.
way.
I haven't either. I have definitely felt like, boy oh boy, I wish I was not so high. Um and once again, like, I still is it awesome for that to happen? No, not at all. But I am so glad that it really is just a matter of within around 4 hours that you're quite a bit better in my experience. Um, but that makes me again, being the marijuana apologist that I am, it makes me be like, oh gosh, I wish you could just like you should try getting a super mildly dosed, like 1 milligram edible from a little gummy from the dispensary and bite it in half for a movie night and try that first. And that is just such Like when you
I
get
like
so
how we try to like tell people about like introducing themselves to pot, like a kid trying like a vegetable that they don't like. We're like, just have a little bit and work your way. We're like coaching, but that is so true, and that's exactly the reaction I had. I'm like, I am so sorry to hear that, but even if you don't like feel like bongs and smoking and that whole shtick is for you, I think you could enjoy your now the drinks, like a very light 2 milligram can drink that you have like sustained over an hour. I'm like,
yes. And the only reason I want people to try it if they're interested and to not stay scared is because for me, a lot of adults want to use some sort of substance sometimes. And I think that having a small bit, and even now with depending on how much I'm using in a given time, but I often will have a gummy bit in half or even less than half for a movie night that you just get to feel so like, okay, I am present in this movie night. This is fun. This is light. I feel cozy, like just chill, such like, oh, yes, those vibes. That is why I encourage it if you're interested to try like that, because it's just a much more regulated dosage and more pleasant experience to me. And then you're not risking your throat and lungs getting like blown up, the pain of a dab that is too big. Like, it's so bad. Okay,
I
I'll
think we
hop
can all
into
agree that smoking in any capacity is a net negative on the respiratory system and probably overall health outcomes. Am I saying that that means I never do it? No. I'm just saying we can also be very honest, and sometimes people go too far down the lane of being like, yeah, that's not, it's actually not even a problem for you, and we need to live in reality. I love that now we're in a day and age where you can have like little edibles, tinctures, there's so many options.
yeah, totally. Okay, this one is from one of my stoner friends, so hopefully you guys under there's some real stoner references in here. One of our favorites. Some background that's relevant is our rig was set up so that while smoking bud, you had to physically lift the bowl to clear the bong. That makes sense to me. Hopefully everyone else is following.
I'm following very strongly.
But when we switched to dabs, we were using a steel head. So obviously you can't grab it to clear the bowl. Because if you guys don't know, when you're smoking dabs, you torch the head or whatever you want to call it, the nail, whatever. You torch it so it's flaming hot. And the dabs come into contact with it, and that's how it burns. Instead, we were clearing it with a lever type mechanism. Anyways, several of us went through probably 4 or 5 bowls of regular flour, and then we decided to switch to dabs. The first 3 of us took our dabs, then handed the bog to one of our friends. He torched the head, took the dab, and then picked up the steel head. All of us started making all sorts of noises, being like, no, dude! But we watched his eyes get huge, and then he dropped it. As we were all laughing and he was dying coughing, we realized our carpet was burning where he dropped the head.
No.
When I read it in text, sounds dumb, but when we tell it to each other, we always die laughing. I think that's crazy to imagine actually being in that, witnessing that someone is pinching to grab an on fucking fire hot thing with their hands.
Yeah, what you know to just be burning hot, and when you have that moment of recognition where like you know someone's
There's
gonna hurt
nothing you
themselves,
can
but
do.
you can't respond like quickly enough to stop what's happening.
Oh,
dang
yeah,
it.
and then
Also
classic
the
burnt
carpet.
hole in the carpet.
Yeah, that is classic. Dang
Dabs
it.
are a whole different game. They're just a whole, like, that's a whole different type of weed smoking to me.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, this one I am going to condense a little bit because it's pretty long, and I think we'll get the gist. This was my freshman year of college with two friends, Nick and Sarah, and we weren't really friends with Nick yet, but we wanted to be friends with him, and he invited us back to his room to smoke, and we were so happy. We were like, oh my gosh, we have to be cool. We're in the elevator looking up how to do a bong rip on YouTube before we get to his room. And then when we got there, both of them take a hit first, and then he asked if I needed help lighting it. And I was like, no, I got this, trying to play it off like I knew what I was doing. My first bong rip was 2 weeks before, actually executed perfectly, I'm sure. Um, and I snapped the bowl, is the moral of the story.
Oh, damn.
Dang it. You're sitting there smoking and you're like, okay. They started cracking up. I'm like, oh my god, you guys are feeling it already? That's so funny. And I didn't feel it for 5 or 10 minutes. And all of a sudden, I'm just not there mentally. And I sat there staring at the ground. My whole body went numb. And I was like, maybe you should call 911. I'm not okay. But they were both like, no, it's just weed. It's fine. I'm glad they made this call for me. And Nick felt really bad, but I felt worse. And just super embarrassed. And Sarah walked me back to my dorm room, which was just 2 flights up. But the walk from the elevator to my room felt like the longest walk of my life. It was crazy.
Yeah. So snapping the bowl is like you light the whole thing on fire and hit all of the weed that's present. So, yeah, I don't know how you didn't die coughing from that and get immediately high. That's my, if you're not used to smoking weed, hopefully it was a small bowl.
Yeah, hopefully,
They just
but
wait till the bong is milky and just
I was like, how you're. This must be because she's someone that goes in the water a lot and she can really hold her breath. Her lung capacity, and like for you being this like your first rip, I would think that you would not be like, you usually have to try with a concerted effort and it is not for the faint of heart. Yeah. So you must just thought, oh, like I'm gonna just slurp up as long as I can go.
And I have had a few friends that their first experiences with weed, they said like the first few they didn't get high or it took them a while. And I also think you don't realize that what you are is high as quickly the first or first few times because it's something you haven't done before.
Haven't we all also spoken to someone that's like, I am literally not that drunk?
Yeah.
And you're like, well,
yeah. Yes.
Some people feel
yes,
differently about it. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, good for her with some swimmers. Wait, is swimmer's lung a bad thing? Does that mean
it's not something I've ever heard of before?
Yeah, well, good for you, lungs of steel. Okay, I'm gonna try to narrate this story from a friend. Wish me luck that I stay on track. So, my friend was with her now boyfriend before they started dating, and she was like, sent a late night text and was like, hey, do you want a sesh? And he's like, yeah, I want a sesh. So, like teenagers do, they drove to their old middle school parking lot and with their bong and decided to get stoned, and they had weed and some dabs as well. They grew up in Colorado, so I feel like that's also, there was plenty of access to weed. And they decided, oh, it's the middle of the night, this is so fun, let's go climb the roof of the school. And it had been snowing. They tried to see, this is where I feel I can't give the story quite its gusto, because I'm not sure they intentionally didn't make footprints in the snow or they somehow didn't make footprints in the snow climbing onto the roof. as soon as they get up there, which they brought the bong and the dabs too, because it's like, oh, this is so fucking cool. Let's bring everything with us on top of the school. And took another couple hits, and then very quickly after, the several cops, 3 cop cars show up in the parking lot. So as you can imagine, they start freaking out, like, what do we do? Like, we're on the roof with this. And her boyfriend now said, you know what, you guys, like, it's my friend and her brother, and he's like, you guys have a, like, bright future ahead. You stay here. Like, I'll go down and turn myself in, and I'll take the blame for it all. But soon after, I don't know how long, the cops all left, and they credit this to the fact that there were no, I guess the cops were out, like, looking around, and they felt like they did a good job avoiding the snow, not leaving any footprint evidence.
The cops are like, where could they be? Not so when you're fully a minor on school property up on the roof. You're like, oh no.
With your paraphernalia in tow, dabs in tow, just everything about it illegal. You're on school property.
And you just do not. The cops put you on edge so much. Even in high school, when I was not partaking.
Okay.
I'm saying,
see,
Quinn's like, even especially.
I was scared as hell.
No, but I'm just saying, it's like, who likes, like, a cop to drive by them?
No.
I don't know, maybe some of us, but not me. And another story that I was told was from when he was in high school, and he rode his bike over to a friend's house to smoke because it was not too far from home. He was running back to our house, and he just felt, like, paranoid because it was dark out and he was biking, and so, like, you see the headlights coming and you don't know who is in the car, and it could be, like, the cops, but you can't tell until they're right on you. So he said that anytime a car turned down that road and there were headlights, he was getting off the bike and laying down in the ditch to lay down flat till they passed, and then would get up and go. And he said it took him forever to get back home because he just kept hiding.
With every car that passed, he's like, this could be the cops. That is so funny. I've totally done stuff like that too. Especially when you're a teenager, you're just so paranoid about the fact that you're high. It's like, I am stoked and this is awesome, but also I'm so scared. That just reminded me that when I was in high school and I was in a study group for chemistry, because chemistry was, like, the hardest science class in school, and it was the time in high school that I had started partaking with my friends quite regularly, and we met up because we're both in the study group together with this tutor. So we met up before, smoked, went to her house, which is where the tutoring was, and she had another group of students there. So she, like, welcomed us in, but then she's like, I have to deal with this group of students. I'll be with you in a second. And she walks over to us and she's like, also, her husband was literally a drug, like, educator.
He was kind a part of our, like, our diversion program.
Yeah. Yes. He was, he came to the school to educate people about not using drugs. And she gets over to us and is like, were you guys smoking pot? And we're like, no. No, literally. And we to her are like, literally no, I don't.
Quinn's like, what?
And she's like, hey, well, get started on your stuff.
I resent that accusation.
I attest that accusation. And she's like, detest. She's like, get started on your work. I need to finish up with this group. I'll be back in a minute. And we're like, so the second she walks away, we're like, oh my fucking god, dude, what do we say? Like, fuck. And we're like, oh, you work at a mechanic. Like, you work at a mechanic. Let's say you like stink because of that. So she comes back over and my friend is like, you know what? We realized that I was working under some cars today and I got gas. I got like oil and gas on me. That must be what smells. She's like, okay. And we continue with our lesson, and thankfully she was cool. She didn't like, nothing further came of that, but we were both like, fuck.
The damn of it all is in those situations. If you just were like, oh yeah, no, and didn't say anything else, it's so much better than offering an excuse like that.
By the time
tough.
she comes back,
yeah, you're like,
no.
oh my god, just to remind you that you your initial impression was that we had been smoking weed. No, that was the gasoline. It's like, bro, the way that people, I will say though, some adults are so oblivious that for me, with like our parents, I feel like, imagine to dad like acting like the smell of pot was like the smell of a car. It's like, okay, this isn't my first rodeo, buckaroo. Like, I don't, just shut up. You don't have to like, you'd be like, oh yeah, oh, you know what, I had my windows rolled down when I was driving and maybe somebody else was smoking and that could be what it's like, please.
Yeah,
but I don't know, sometimes these people are gullible, maybe willfully ignorant. They're like, you know what, okay. But, dang,
what can you do though? Like, we were later along in high school, you know, and it's like, yes, we smoked weed. Sorry. I don't know what to tell you. Like, clearly, that's just a thing to me in life that I'm sure... I presume that's going to happen with my high school children at some point. I guess, who knows, maybe they choose abstinence like Riley. But they're going to end up in the long run being a stoner anyway, so what's the point?
This has cracked me up. There are so many more stories. Once I invite you guys to actually ask this prompt of the people in your life, because once you open that, well, there are lots more to go down, and it is funny. And while some maybe were nerve-wracking in the moment and people felt like they were in outer space, etc., you always come back down and you can laugh about it in the future and have party stories with your friends, which is very important.
Also, I feel like I have a million... Okay, I don't want to make it sound like I've been high a million times, but lots and lots of positive encounters and times using weed, but it's just so much less story worthy that it's hard to... I'm like, yeah, I had a great time, felt great, it was fun, felt creative, picked up my paintbrush, had a delicious orange, watched a movie, like, great times. Just, I have less of a formula for a story about those memories, you know?
That's the thing, is sometimes your brain really does glom onto the extremes, whether it's the horror stories or something like crazy, like the cops showing up, but most of the time, a good time is had by all, fun, lighthearted. We hope that in whatever capacity you're celebrating this week, whether you just had a happy Passover, or you're getting to see family for Easter, or you're getting together with some friends and making some of your favorite snacks and having a gummy or a five. I hope that you have a great time. Turn on Pineapple Express or your favorite silly movie or show and just let loose. You deserve it. I want to keep on like getting rolling submissions of these stories because they crack me up, and especially although maybe the telling of a written submission, I think it lends itself well to a podcast. I so enjoy getting the stories over the phone, so know that that is still available for anyone that feels like, oh, I missed the episode, have to share this. There's no wrong time to
our
tell
DMs
someone
are
your
open.
silly story.
Voice record.
Exactly.
Voice record on our DMs. We want that. No, this is a great time. Everyone, happy spring, happy Easter if you're going to enjoy Easter. I know for one, I enjoy Easter even when it's not on 420, but I know I'll especially enjoy it on 420 this year. And I hope you all partake safely. You know, if you're going to have, you can celebrate 420 like Riley said, just with a little something. And make sure you have a delightful bev with you, whether it's just water or anything hits when you're a little faded.
Ugh.
You know, any crisp
a cold
drink.
mint tea. I love to just steep a peppermint tea and you make it nice and
with
cold.
some honey.
So you can follow us on YouTube now at the Q&R code if you want to watch your episodes. Otherwise, you can always find us at the Q&R code, at Quinn Lilystrom and at Riley Lilystrom on Instagram. And then on TikTok, it's at the Q&R code podcast. We will talk to you very soon. Thanks for joining us on another fun day to record with my twin. We were excited for this one, and I'm feeling great. Can't wait to move forward in my day with more of this energy.
Yes. Sending love to you all. Riley, I love you so much. Mwah. Goodbye.
I love you.